So one of my biggest fears and one of the reasons why I kept putting my happiness in the next goal is because I feared that if I was happy now, then I wouldn't have the motivation to reach the goal and I would never achieve the goal.
Welcome, Badass Manifester. I am so glad you are here. I'm your host and head coach, Ashley Gordon, master mindset and manifestation biz expert, founder of the quantum coaching certification, and multiple six-figure entrepreneur obsessed with empowering you to create quantum leaps in your energy, your life, and your business. This is the show to help you make magic your everyday normal, where the ripple effect is real and the guest experts are world class. My mission is to power your conscious and subconscious mind with manifestation teachings, business tools, and coaching techniques to put your potential into action. Consider this your weekly up level. Are you ready for quantum transformation? Let's do this. What's up, Badass Manifester? I am so pumped for this episode because I am interviewing Jaclyn DiGregorio. She is a life coach, motivational speaker, and best-selling author of Stop Getting in Your Way. At age 21, Jaclyn started her business from dorm room at Georgetown University and has been featured since then in Forbes, Elite Daily, Bustle, Washington Business Journal, and her book has been featured on Good Morning Washington. She is amazing. She also has a TED Talk. I was on her podcast and I was like, girl, I need you on my podcast. So she's here today and we discussed what it really means to have a breakthrough in your life and how breakthroughs don't just happen in one glorified moment, that they happen along the journey and to be open to the journey. And she deep dives into how to be courageous and show up no matter what, and how to fully believe in yourself, like what it truly means to believe in yourself. We hear it all the time, believe in yourself, but what does it actually mean? I'm not joking. She drops so many nuggets on here. I was just like almost in tears at some points through this episode, just loving and soaking in, downloading her words. So I hope that you love it as much as I did. Make sure you tag us. Let us know how much you love it. She shares her Instagram at the end, and I can't wait for you guys to listen. So have a beautiful day and enjoy this episode.
I always was confused about this whole thing of inevitable success. Like I would always say the affirmation, but I would get confused because I would tell myself, well, if I knew it was inevitable, I would do nothing. I would just sit on my couch all day. I would get manicures. I would get facials, and I would just let the clients come to me. I would let people sign up for my courses and everything would just come to me. And so I always felt confused. And then yesterday I had this big breakthrough where I was like, well, what if the inevitability comes from my action and the action doesn't actually matter? It's my belief that creates the action. And so it's really my belief that matters. But for me, the actual taking the action, in a sense, like creates the belief or raises the belief. So it's like if everyone's my potential client and I can tell everyone to get on a consult with me, and then I get on 50 consults this month, it's inevitable that a few people will sign, right? And so say my goal is like 3 new clients this month. It's inevitable that I'll get the 3 clients because I'm going to get on these 50 consults. And it's inevitable that I'm going to get on the 50 consults because I'm going to tell thousands of people this month about my life coaching. And so I kind of like reworked that whole thing of inevitable success, creating it not from just like it's inevitable, so do nothing, but rather it's inevitable because of the action. But the action doesn't actually matter. The action is about belief. Does that make sense?
Whoa, sparkly mic drop. Yeah, of course it makes sense. Yeah.
So yeah, that's been a big thing for me recently.
That's amazing. And how's that working out for you?
Awesome. I feel wonderful. And it creates detachment too. So like something I used to struggle with, especially when you're talking one-on-one, like my whole business is one-on-one and courses. I don't do any like groups because I just like one-on-one. I'm very much anti-rule follower. But anyways, when I would be on consults with people and I'd be like, oh, I'm so close to my goal. And if this one person signs, then I'll hit my goal. That would naturally create attachment. But because I am like, okay, just get on as many consults as possible, like tell everyone about them. Then, okay, if this person doesn't sign, I have 10 other consults this month. So I don't really care. My success is inevitable anyway. And so that's created more success because then the people feel no attachment, they feel no pressure. And then they're like, you're so genuine. I can't wait to work with you. So it's been powerful.
That is so powerful. When we have attachment, we have that resistance. And when we have resistance, we have freaking resistance, right? There's just like that feeling of like, this is not going to happen. And like, I love that you said, just that when you have no attachment, it flows to you. Like that is so true. That is so true. I can relate to that a lot, especially in this last year of just like really letting go and just being like, whatever happens, like, I'm not like, I need this to happen. And when I
Yeah.
don't need it, it comes.
Yeah, exactly. It's so powerful. And how can we create that? And there's this concept with money too that brings me to this that I've taught my clients, and it really changed my life. And it's changed a lot of my clients' life. I call it your minimum standard, and it's like this concept of need, basically. So, when we first moved into our house, we renovated our whole house, and so it cost like a lot of money. Like we gutted a 2-story 1,800 square foot house and redid everything. So
Wow.
we paid our down payment, we paid our whole, and I just had my $100,000 year, and not all of it was obviously profit because I invested in my business, right? And so, and my fiance works and he has a great job, but like it still was a lot for
Money.
us to
Yeah.
spend. And so I felt so stressed about money. And I was like, I every month I try to manifest from this place of scarcity. Like there's not enough. And how are we going to pay for these things? And so I came up with this idea, like, what if there was enough? And then what if I only manifest it? Like everything's manifestation, obviously. But what if in my head, I was calling it manifestation after there was enough? And so it was fun and it was exciting. And so I was like, well, how can I create enough? And like, fortunately, I have this business and these clients. So I was able to like sign people up for different recurring packages and generate recurring revenue in my business. But for some of my clients, whether they have businesses or not, I ask them, like, how can you create your minimum standard? So figure out what it is, like add up all your bills, add up everything you need, and include fun money too. Like I'm definitely not the kind of person that talks about like, don't drink your lattes or whatever. Like include what's going to make you feel good. Maybe not your like most bougie luxe lifestyle ever, but like one that you're going to enjoy and be happy with. And then ask yourself how you can create it. So I had a client who she was running her coaching business, but she was like kind of coming up short month to month on her bills and she was constantly stressed. And she found out that she was like $800 short. So I was like, how can you make 800 extra dollars? She's like, oh, well, I'm a really good graphic designer. And I used to do graphic design for this fun like website where they just send you clients. I don't know what it is, but she signed herself up. She did one logo a week for $200 and she made $800. And then that month she had her highest month in business ever, which was 22K, because the $800 was covered and she wasn't stressed and she didn't need it. And so I always tell my clients who are like stressed financially, like, look at your numbers. And the weird thing is that some people already meet their minimum standard, but they convince themselves that they don't. So that's a totally different type of person, right? It's like, I don't
Right.
have enough money.
They
But
still think they don't have enough.
right. But they do. Like when they look at their budget and they look at what they typically spend and what they want to spend, they have plenty. They're even saving money. And so even just looking at it is so freeing. And so if you're trying to manifest money and you feel attached to it, that's one thing that helped me a ton, helped my clients a ton. So I highly recommend.
Such a good nugget. Oh my God. Yeah. It just changes your mindset around what is enough and what is not enough. And it's like the simplest thing, the simplest tweak for your client opened up floodgates of abundance. Like that's amazing. I love that.
Yeah. And like the enough idea is a whole nother thing. I could just go on. Like, how do you know when it's enough? And like, can you
Yeah.
decide like with money and business, like
Yeah. Right.
what's
What's your
enough
measure of
success?
success? Right.
Right. And like, and everything in your life. Like, I don't know. I just feel like that's something that I think is really important for people to write a clear definition of what enough is for you so
Mm,
that you can feel happy and proud and grateful. And then if you want to create more, that's awesome, but it's more than enough.
it's so true. It is so, so true. And I've asked myself that question a lot as I've grown the business. It's like, well, when is it going to be enough? And when I'm celebrating and I'm feeling it and I'm taking it in, I'm like, "Whoa, this is amazing. Like, this is it. This is fulfillment. This is it." Like, it's that feeling of enough, of contentment, of happiness. And, yeah, I don't know. Just what were you going to say?
Well, I think it's the happiness thing because I did an experiment, I have to tell,
Yeah.
this year during COVID. So actually your friend, Jen Casey, she inspired this experiment. I still haven't told her. But back at BBD Live in October 2019, she gave a speech and she
Were
was
you there?
talking about, what'd you say?
Were you there?
Yeah, I was there.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, that speech was so good.
Yeah. So in the speech when she was talking about, it was like, what's your, like, I don't remember her exact words, but like your emotional state, your like constant state that you're in. And so I wrote down busy. And then she was like, what's behind that? Like, really go deeper. And then I wrote down not enough, like not good enough. And so busy makes me feel good enough. And I thought back on my whole life and I realized, like, gosh, I remember being the third grader that played 3 sports in one season. And I would go from softball to lacrosse to track all in the same night and then do my homework and then get to bed and barely get enough sleep for third grade. And that continued my whole life. High school, it was how many AP classes can I take? College, it was how many clubs can I lead? Start my business as a college student and work a part-time job. Like, this just was forever for me. My whole life was busy. And even just thinking about conversations you have with people, like, how are you? I'm busy. Like, it's, you brag about it. Yeah. And so it was a real breakthrough for me in that moment, but I didn't act on it. I was like stuck. I recognized it, but I was so caught up in like, we'll make more money each month, and each month your business has to grow, and that growth comes from hustle. And so when COVID happened and everything slowed down, my life really changed. We weren't going anywhere. Everything was closed. My fiance was working from home for the first time ever in our relationship. And my business slowed down too. Like, I had some clients that, paused their packages and different things. And I was just like, this is the time. Like, I just knew that I had to do this inner work. So I decided to do like an experiment for a couple of months where I was only going to work 3 hours a day. Cause I remember coming across so many people who said they work 3 hours a day. And I wanted to prove to myself that my business wouldn't dip. Like, it wouldn't make any less money if I only worked 3 hours a day. And prior to that, I was probably working like a normal 8-hour day, I would say. So I did it. I worked only 3 hours a day. I moved all my client calls between 12 and 3. And
Wow.
I had the most luxe morning routine ever. And then at 3 p.m., both my sisters are teachers. So it was in the summer, a lot of it, or during COVID. And so at 3, they were like done working or not working because it was the summer. And we would go for like these long walks, and they both have little babies. So we take their babies out. And it was just like, it was so fun. And my business did not make any less money. Like, nothing changed. Like, my clients are my clients. I still got like random people come to me, people buying my courses out of nowhere. Like, literally nothing changed. I didn't grow my business. So I will say, like, it wasn't like I up leveled or was making any more money, but nothing dipped. And so then I was like, okay, what does my enoughness come from? And the whole purpose really got to this point was like, can I be happy today? Can I be happy with the now? And I think one of the reasons for so long that I didn't allow myself to be happy and I put my happiness in the next goal is because I thought that I would never reach the goal. If I was already happy, then I wouldn't feel motivated. But it wasn't true. It wasn't true.
Wow. Okay. Slow down and say that again, because I really want everyone to like download that.
Yeah. So one of my biggest fears and one of the reasons why I kept putting my happiness in the next goal is because I feared that if I was happy now, then I wouldn't have the motivation to reach the goal and I would never achieve the goal.
Whoa, you guys, that's profound. Wow. Good work.
Thank you. It was life-changing. 2020 was like my year, and not of income growth.
Yeah.
It was of happiness, of enough.
And you had your biggest income year ever.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that's what happens, which we'll get to. Okay, but keep going.
So I really focused on joy. How can I be happy today? And like, I was reading a lot of manifestation books and really like latching on the concept of your vibration is just your happiness. Like, if I can just find more joy in every day, then I will manifest more. And that's what I started doing. I just started finding as much joy as I could. And I was achieving goals, but it was more so like I was slowing down to speed up. So the end of 2020 was like my highest months, and just so much growth in like the structure of my business and my vision and all these things. And it's really to set me up for 2021. I feel like that's the breakthrough year number 2 for me. And it's because I feel like I'm enough. And this is going to bring into another conversation, but I think it's equally as important related to this enoughness thing. So I think another part of the reason why I struggled with the enoughness was, well, what makes me good enough? And I thought that what makes me good enough is not just busy, but work. And I think that came from society and this whole concept of purpose,
Mm.
because we're told that our purpose is our careers or our jobs. And to find your purpose, you need to find a job that you're good at. And I did. I found a job that I'm really good at and that people love and brings me joy and all these things. And so I only felt purposeful when I was working. And so I rewrote my definition of purpose. And
Mm.
I believe that your purpose is essentially your vibration, like who you are and how you're showing up in the world. And so I feel like my purpose is light, and to bring that to other people. So whether it can be in your work or outside of your work, and you have purpose 24 hours of the day. So I have purpose when I go for a walk with my sister and I'm hanging out with her, in the afternoon. And I have purpose when I'm like, helping cultivate a profound transformation in a client. And all people in their careers can find both. And to choose a good career for you is to choose one where it helps you live your purpose. So I always give the example of my girlfriend who's a nurse. She's the most caring person. When you hear her voice, when she talks to you, you're like, please care for me when I'm having a surgery or when I'm in the hospital. And so she's using her purpose as a nurse, but she's also using her purpose when she's talking to me about something I'm stressed about, or, when she's checking out at the grocery store, and her kind voice just makes that employee feel light and feel peace. So that's another thing. Like, if you feel like you're putting your happiness in a goal and you feel like you're struggling with being good enough, look at, like, what are you basing your purpose on? What do you feel like your purpose is? And do you feel purposeful all the time? Do you feel purposeful when you're laying on the couch doing nothing? And if you don't, change your definition so that you do.
Wow. That was beautiful, beautiful and powerful, and so, so resonant to my soul. And how freeing is that though, right? Like when you can rest in this belief and knowing that you're always living your purpose, no matter where you are, what you're doing. So when you break away from your work and you're out with your sister and your nieces and nephews, and you're just like being with them, living your purpose right there, your purpose is where you are. It's just like a deep exhale to me, you know?
Yeah. And it's like the detachment. Like, there's no pressure on your purpose, so your purpose flows to you.
Yes. For the people in the back. Yes.
I
Yes.
love
Yes.
this. This is such a good conversation.
This is so important. It's so important. And I question these things all the time. Like when I get that pressure feeling and I'm in like that pressure cooker state, and I'm just like, what am I doing this for? You know, you get to that point where you're just like, what's the fucking point of this? Why am I doing this? And it's like nothing matters. Like you can't be in your purpose when you're in that state. Like you're locked out of it, you
Yeah.
know? So it's so good to just check in and to redefine your measure of success and your measure of happiness, because it doesn't have to live solely in your work or solely when you're, facilitating transformation or whatever you do in the world. So this was just like so reinforcing. That's so good.
I love it.
I love it too. So you said that this was your breakthrough year and how you took your business from like you made $11,000 to $100,000. And you were sharing that people think breakthroughs happen like all at one time. And I totally agree with you that it's not the case. It's all these little breakthroughs, just like you were talking about. Maybe that was it. Maybe that's what you were referring to, of like all the little breakthroughs that you've had along the way. But I think that's so important. And another thing I want to go back to, just so I don't forget, is that the life coach piece, like everybody needs a life coach, and how it's so true. Like that is a niche in itself. And that is a niche in itself. Okay. Just remember that.
Okay.
So tell me about the breakthroughs.
Okay. So the breakthroughs, well, the breakthrough will get into the life coach thing, honestly. So the breakthroughs that I was all just talking about were actually 2020. So I feel like that's setting me up for like 2021. And
Mm-hmm.
so the breakthroughs are my real, like, I call 2019 my breakthrough year just because like a 10x my income. And, I was literally about to give up my business. So for context, for those of you listening, I started my business in 2016 as a college student at Georgetown. My first idea was a physical product. It was these plates that encouraged like eating healthier. I struggled with binge eating disorder in college. And so, eating balanced meals helped me stop binging. And so I thought these would help people. And long story short, with the plates, they were an epic failure. I spent $10,000 on them. I waitressed on campus to make that money, and I borrowed a little bit from my parents. And we're finally like donating all of the plates because they've been in my grandmother's garage for so many years. Bless her soul. So that was my first failure. And when that wasn't working out, I caught it. And the first failure was really, I say, easy to get back up from compared to the other failures because, you know, it's the first one. Also, like the younger you are, you kind of feel like it's like playful, like, oh, she's just a college student. It's fine. You know, it's okay. But once I graduated, I felt like it was real and the failures hurt more. So the next failure was an app I tried to make. It was along the same context. So I wanted to help people with wellness. There was a food, there was a nutrition, there was an overall wellness component of it. And I didn't have a lot of money. I already spent the 10K. So I raised 20K on Kickstarter and I used that to hire developers, but the only developers I could afford were college students. Cause if you've ever tried to develop an app, it costs like 100K plus for like actual talented developers, a real company. So I didn't have that. So these college students were working on it and I couldn't read code. So like Entrepreneur CEO lesson 101, you probably shouldn't outsource something that you don't know how to do. Cause I couldn't tell if it was like bad code or good code. And so I'm like, this is great. They're coding. Look at all this code. And I couldn't read it. So it was like these deadlines for the deliverables for the app. And none of it worked. Like it was just like crashing bugs. I had built this community of maybe like 200 college women who were going to beta test. So they get on the app and they're like messaging me, it's not working. It's crashing in the middle of my workout, like all this stuff. Like, so it was incredibly stressful, but I was not ready to give up on the idea. So long story short, I tried 2 more sets of developers. These I won like different grants and I was finding, I was so freaking resourceful living at home with my parents, college graduate, to find any kind of money I could. Cause I never worked. I never worked a job. The only time I ever worked during my business journey was like when I desperately needed money and it was never a full-time job. I did babysitting. I delivered for DoorDash, like just anything I could do to like make enough money to just get by. But I never worked a real job. So I would be really resourceful. And so I found these 2 other sets of developers and basically they couldn't make it either. It still wasn't working the way I wanted it to. And so at some point I realized like, this isn't going to work. And so this is when I thought towards the end of 2018, I'm going to give up my business. I'm going to get a job. I remember very vividly, like researching jobs. I was emailing them to my parents. I was emailing them to my boyfriend at the time, who's now my fiance, saying like, do you think I should apply for this job? Blah, blah, blah. And of course, like I was going to apply for these jobs that were like way out of my league, like need 15 years experience. And I was like, I need 15 years entrepreneurship experience qualifies for 15 years. Anyways, I was really serious about quitting. And I was really fortunate to have a support system that did not want me to give up. My dad specifically and my fiance were so strong on like, please keep going. You can do this. Like this is possible for you. And so just one side note of the breakthrough is surround yourself with people who are not going to let you give up. Like I remember having a conversation with my dad. It was at dinner one night and I said, I'm quitting my business. And he just got up from the table. He couldn't even speak to me. He left the room. He went upstairs. I think he took a shower. He came back down and he said, he's a man of very few words. And he said, Jaclyn, you are not a quitter. And went on with his thing. And like, it pierced my soul. And so that's one part of the breakthrough.
It just pierced. I'm like crying right now. Very emotional.
It's powerful. And please don't quit. Like whatever you're doing, please don't quit. So that's part A of the breakthrough. There will probably be honestly like A to Z, the many parts that come because
can I just interject right here?
Please.
Like, this has been a message that has been given to me over and over and over again, like in the last few months with just like different things that I've been going through. And I actually went on my stories today and I was like, whatever you're going through, just keep going. Don't give up. Like, keep going, keep going. And so you're just like saying it now too. And I'm like, holy shit. Okay, keep going.
It was meant to come through.
Yeah.
So I decided I was going to keep going, but I didn't know how. And so this is kind of like breakthrough number, or part B, we'll call it, is when you feel really down, when you failed, when something didn't go your way, the best thing you can do is just take the next step. And I remember many days, the next step was like, get out of bed, move your body, take a shower, feed yourself food, and sleep. Like that was the next step for me. And that was great. And then the next step after that was maybe journal, and read a book. And then the next step after that was like, oh, I came up with that one thought that maybe that's something I could look into. Let me research that thing. And each step led to what I've created now. So stop putting pressure on yourself. Stop feeling like you have to go from, it's like Abraham Hicks emotional guidance scale, like the very bottom to the very top, like one step at a time you can climb. And if you don't know what that is, it's basically just a scale of emotions. And when you're at the very bottom emotion, it's very difficult to climb to the very top emotion, but you can go like up just a little bit. So you're still feeling down, but you're feeling slightly less down. And so that's what I did, one step at a time. And so the next thing that was breakthrough C, was asking myself a specific question in journaling that changed everything. And the question was, what is working? And when you feel like nothing is working, and that's genuinely how I felt, $11,000, can't afford to move out of my parents' house, need to get a job, I truly felt like nothing was working. But the truth is that there's always something that's working. You just can't see it when you're so stuck in that one, lane. And when I asked myself, what is working? I really looked back. I thought about the past 2.5 years, what I was working on. And all of a sudden I knew, like it was clear as day from that question. And I thought about all the messages I had gotten on Instagram from these workshops I had done at college sororities talking about my eating disorder. And I did these as a marketing tool to build my email list for my beta test of this app. So I think I spoke at 66 different sororities in one semester, which was insane because I am insane. And I loved it. And I would go totally for free, virtual or in person, depending where the school was. If I could travel there, I didn't have any money, so I had to be able to drive there, pay for the tolls and the parking or whatever it was. And I would just tell them about how I had an eating disorder in college and how difficult it was and why I was creating this app and what my life was like today after recovering from my eating disorder. And so it was, in a sense, this motivational speech because I talked about how recovering from my eating disorder gave me the freedom to pursue my dreams. And what would happen after these talks is I would get these DMs saying like, I have an eating disorder and I never even realized it. And now that you said it, I'm going to go get professional help. Or I want to change my major and I've been wanting to change it for 2 years, but I'm afraid of what my parents are going to think. But after hearing you tell about following your dreams, I'm going to change my major tomorrow. Wow. And it was like these powerful messages that I totally ignored, that my brain didn't even realize were there, didn't even realize there was value in. And so when I did this journaling on what is working, my conclusion was I'm supposed to be a motivational speaker. Like that was it. Like this is my gift. And so these failures were a blessing because I wasn't meant to lead a tech company or develop a product. I was meant to speak and coach and do the work I'm doing now. It's probably obvious after spending some time with me that
I was just going to say it's really obvious.
That's what people always say, but I'm like, I only got here because of literally like 3 years of failing. And so breakthrough C was asking that question. So then once I asked that question, it wasn't easy because the next step was actually doing it and implementing it. And remember, I said I had these cheerleaders, these people who loved me, but even those people, they were really confused because ironically, the timing wasn't so good. I asked myself this question on Christmas Eve, and I celebrate Christmas. So, Christmas Eve morning where I'm doing all this journaling and I have this idea in my head. I'm ditching my business. I'm abandoning everything. I got to tell my parents, what are they going to say? And, I'm living at home with them. They're supporting me. Like they're paying for the groceries. They're not charging me rent. And so they're kind of concerned. Like, when is this at this point? Like, I think I was 23. When is this 23-year-old like going to get out of the house? Like, whatever they're thinking, I'm their last one. It's time. So Christmas morning, I just couldn't hold it in. And so we're supposed to be like opening presents. And I'm like, I got to tell you something. I'm going to quit everything I've already done, but don't worry. I'm not giving up on my dreams. I'm just going to abandon the app, all of the health stuff, the wellness. I don't want to do any of that. I'm going to be a motivational speaker. And my dad looked at me like so confused. And he was like, so you want to be Oprah? And I was like, yes, Oprah is amazing. What an inspiration. Like it would be my absolute biggest dream to be an Oprah-like figure, obviously the Jaclyn version of Oprah, but yes, you get it. And he was like, oh no, like they were so concerned. They were so concerned. And I'm like, okay, I got this. And so the next step is like doing it anyway. Part D of the breakthrough is even though you feel the fear, do it anyway. And what my TEDx talk is about courage, and how I used to think that courage was about like being fearless because that's something we always hear. And, you know, we're often given that message from a young age, be fearless. But the truth is, I've never felt fearless in my life. I felt nervous before this podcast interview because I'm human and like I feel fear literally all the time. I feel nervous before like most things I do. And
Same, girl.
courage is not about being fearless. Courage by definition is about acting in spite of the fear. So I created this like belief equation to make it simple. And it's courage is anytime your belief is greater than your fear. And so it's all about doing the inner belief work to raise your belief up higher than that level of fear. And that can be in whatever way works for you. For me, it was getting into possibility and just believing it was possible for me, believing it was possible to build a 6-figure business, believing it was possible to make money, sharing my gifts and talents, following my passions, doing affirmations, doing personal development, doing journaling, all those things, visualization. I did it all. But I did enough belief work to just continue taking action, and I made it fun. So breakthrough, I don't remember what letter we're on. E maybe by now.
Yeah, E.
Okay. E.
I'm going to call this episode the ABC of the breakthrough.
Oh my God, I love it. That's so good. I love it. So breakthrough E was make it fun. So this is when I really dove into manifestation deep. Like I read The Secret at 16. So I've always been like into manifestation, like probably a lot of people who are listeners, but sometimes you make a decision that like, you're really going to manifest. And then obviously you do.
I was just going to say before, like, I get the impression from you that like when Jaclyn decides something, she goes all fucking in, like you're all the way in, like, you're like, I'm going to be a motivational speaker. And I know last time when we did our other interview, you were like, I just applied and applied and applied and applied and applied. And you were just like, I'm doing this. Like you're all in on it.
Yeah. And it's really interesting because it's this, I would call it an aligned hustle. Like it doesn't feel like hustle at all. It feels like possibility. It feels like belief. It feels like you can't wait to put yourself out there because you know, as long as you take the action, it's going to create the result you want.
That's really powerful.
Yeah. So when I went all in on the manifestation, I wanted to make it fun. And so some of the things that I did, the first thing was I bought my speaking outfits. And the outfit I actually wear, like in my TEDx, it's like a blue and white dress, and I wear these nude pumps. Like I literally bought that January 2019 before I ever gave a speech. I didn't spend a ton of money because I didn't have a ton of money. I bought probably my Christmas money or something. I bought 3 dresses and a pair of heels. And I've spoken in those outfits like a bajillion times now. And so it was like just a fun, like, these are in my closet now. Like these are waiting for me. The second thing I did was I got my hair done. So I thought about like, who do I want to be on stage? And my whole life, like I got highlights. But when I started my business, I was like trying to cut the budget. So I was like, no more highlights, Jack. You can't afford these. And so I'm like, you know what? Like, I want to have my highlights. It's so fun. Like, I want to be on stage and feel like, wow, like, I just want to feel the most confident version of myself. And so the best part was, I don't remember if I told you this in our last interview. So I'm at the hairdresser. And I tell her, I have to tell her, I'm like, yes, I'm getting highlights because I'm going on this like speaking tour and I want to be like really great on stage. So whatever you think is going to like really look good with like the stage lights. And she believes me because like, who would lie? Right.
Yeah.
And so she's like, oh, wow, that's so cool. Like, where are you going? Where are you going to be speaking? And this is like maybe January 5th. So I have a total of 0 speeches booked. So like, this is really when you're talking about like be to have and act as if, like, how do you respond? And you really have to get creative. So I just stayed in this energy. So I was like, well, I've been like applying to all of these different opportunities and I'm setting up calls with all these different places, colleges. My main 2019 goal was colleges because I felt like it was possible for me because I was a college student recently and I really felt confident in that space. So I was like, I applied, I'm talking to all these colleges and we're setting up calls. And so most likely It'll be colleges and universities all across the country, East Coast, West Coast, Midwest, South, like everywhere in the US. And she was like, that's awesome. Like she didn't think anything of it. She thought like, yeah, she's booking this tour. And guess what? Of course, I booked the tour. But at the time, like I had sent emails, but zero responses, zero calls booked, zero gigs booked. But I just got into that energy and I kept keeping it fun. Another thing, if we use this video, I always do the champagne bottle. I saw this from Rachel Hollis. This one right now says traditional publishing deal because that's one of my 2021/2022 goals. But I used to have one about speaking. And so it was a $5,000 gig. That was like my goal. And so I had that on there. And I think my second gig was a $5,000 gig. I will preface that by saying like I had a lot of speaking experience. I had testimonials. I had things. Not to say, because I don't want to paint the picture that like that's where you should be on your second gig, but I just stepped into it. And so, yeah, the part, whatever part that was have fun, make it fun. You don't have to do the things I did, but like, how can you get like the most fun energy behind it and like, yeah, manifest it from this place of like a game, right? This is so fun. This is a game. I'm living and I do this a lot. I get into this like alternate reality. Sometimes my fiance gets annoyed because I take it so far. We'll be in a store and I'll be like, did you like those shoes I bought? And he's like, you didn't buy the shoes. What is wrong with you? And I'm like, but I did in my mind. And he's like, you're really losing it, but keep it fun. So those are the things, right? Like I would say those are the many components that created the breakthrough. And you can create your own. It doesn't have to be complicated. It's these little steps that matter and that create real transformation.
Wow. I'm loving that. I'm loving all of this so much. And I also love gamifying things. I go into that same alternate universe and I'm like, well, what if my business was just a game? And I want to invest money over here and I want to make money over there. It's like Monopoly, like it's like my own game, right? And it does really take the pressure off of it and makes it really like fun and light. It's crazy.
I love Monopoly. I'm glad you said that. Now I'm going to like imagine Monopoly money coming into my
right? Business. Yes, exactly.
Put Monopoly money in my wallet, $1 million bill.
Exactly. Do it. I absolutely love your story. Like I love how you share it. I love how you explain it. It's so relatable and it's just like it's a true testament to who you are as a person too, of like the secret really is believing in yourself. This manifestation stuff really is real. You're an example of it. And it's just it's amazing the way that you share that. You do have a gift of being able to deliver that and just land it right in the heart, right in the soul. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah. I'm so grateful to be able to share it.
Yeah. So cool. So I have to ask, and obviously this whole episode is a testament to it, but what makes Jack a badass manifester?
Oh my God. Well, I love this because I have to tell you, have you ever done like identity work where you give yourself an alternate like name?
Yeah.
Okay. So my like next level me, whatever that is, like throughout my journey. So it always changes. Like I'll write down all the character traits of her. Who is she? And if you haven't done this, do it. Write down your goals and then write down the identity, the characteristics of that person, and then give that person a name. And that person, she's called Badass Jaclyn because she walks so confidently. Because again, the secret is belief, right? Like the way she walks, the way she talks, the way she feels, it's so confident and it's so powerful. Because I think another thing is about confidence. I used to be afraid to be confident, fully confident, because I thought that it would be like boastful or
I can relate to that. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, I want to be humble. And like, that's the whole thing that comes with making more money. Because the more money I make, I'm like, can my audience relate to me and all these things, right? Like, how do I stay humble and all these things? But I realized it one day because I forget, someone was being boastful, someone that I know. I don't even remember who the person was. I was having a conversation with Richie, my fiance, about it. And I'm like, they're not boastful, they're insecure. And he was like, what? And I'm like, yeah, they're only saying that because they're seeking outside validation. And I was like, wait a second, is it actually possible to overbelieve or to be overconfident? And I think no. I think because if like the more confident I am in myself, the more humble I am, the more I'm like talking. I like the example of like the janitor at the office. Like, my fiance's dad always talks about that. Like when he walks into his office, he always treats the janitor the same as like, the person who owns the building or whatever. And it's like, I just love that analogy because it's like when I feel that confident in myself, I can't wait to hear the janitor's story. But when I am seeking from this place of I'm not good enough, I have to prove myself to the janitor, right? And so it's so different. So anyways, the badass me is that genuine, confident, believing version of myself. And what makes me a badass manifester is belief. And I think that sometimes people want to hear like a more catchy, like and I can come up with that for sure. But that's not the point. The point is like all you have to do is believe. But I think the problem is that, and I was telling you this before we started, and I don't remember when we started recording, guys, this just was a conversation. Like we never officially started.
I didn't even officially introduce you yet. We'll put that in the beginning, I promise.
I love it. So I don't know when we started recording, but when we were first talking, we were talking about 2020 versus 2021 and how we're feeling about the year. And I was saying how like in 2020, a lot of the time I wasn't believing, but I couldn't consciously realize I wasn't. And so I think that's what happens to a lot of us. Like I set a goal of 700K in my business, which I didn't hit. I wanted to go up 7X, but I thought, well, I could 10X, I can 7X, but I didn't believe it. And so, but I didn't know I didn't believe it. Like it was so surface level. And one of the ways to know you don't believe it is because like, you're not alarmed that you're not even close to the goal. Like I was like, everything's great. And I was like, so far off. Like I didn't feel the fear. And this goes back to the courage thing. Like the fear is actually good. I didn't feel nervous about the 700K goal because I didn't believe I could do it. Right. Mm-hmm. And so I think people's problem with belief is we like to believe that we believe, but we don't. So many times we don't. And it's true. Like I wasn't believing in myself last year. There's nothing wrong with you if you're not believing. But how do you get into it? And that goes back to the feeling of possibility. So how can you create possibility? And that's why I love like those bridge affirmations. Like it is possible that I make 100K. It is possible that I make 700K. And just start there. How can you get into the energy? Is it possible? If it's possible for Ashley and it's possible for me, then it's possible for you, or it could be. It could be possible for you, and start there. And then that's why I like action. And that's why we talk about this all in thing. I like action because for me, action creates belief. And it's action, not to say that it's actually going to come from the action. Like the number of times that I've taken action, like I emailed my list, you guys, and I told them about this thing I'm selling. And then I get someone that tells me they found my website on Google. And I'm like, you what? I never did SEO. How did you find it? Like hilarious. And it's so funny. It's clearly I manifested it, and I manifested it from my belief. It wasn't actually the action, but the action created my belief. And so that's something I'm like all on board for. Take massive action in an aligned way where you have boundaries and you're not going to burn out, and do it to create your belief. And again, take so much action that you detach from the individual people or the individual. You can't expect X to lead to Y. It never.
That's gold. That's it. Take so much action that you detach from the individual people or the individual thing.
Right. It's like with my book, like I'm trying to land a literary agent. Like if I put my expectation in one literary agent, I'm never going to get it. But if I send thousands of inquiries, it's inevitable. Right. And that's so powerful. So that's what I think about belief. So look at your belief. Be honest. Am I actually believing? Just ask yourself, like, if you're actually believing, if you didn't hit your, okay. If you didn't hit your 2020 goal, you weren't believing. There wasn't that 100% belief.
And that's okay.
And that is more than okay. Or there were lessons you needed to learn, right?
Right.
Like one or the other. It's divine timing or it's your belief. One or the other. But I used to find that I would blame divine timing, and it was my belief most of the time. And so I would be like, oh, it's just not right. The universe didn't send me anyone. You didn't do anything. And you didn't believe, right? No wonder. So that's what I think.
So powerful. And I can directly relate that to like the fertility journey of like, instead of just keep going, and it's going to happen. Like you're going to get pregnant over time versus like, it has to be this month and the attachment to this month. It's like the same exact thing. It's wild.
Yeah, it can literally apply to anything.
Anything. It's so powerful. Jaclyn, thank you so much. You're amazing. Where can everyone buy your book, stalk you out, follow you, listen to your podcast, like all the things? You guys get into her beautiful light energy.
Yeah. So all the places. So if you like podcasts, you can listen to the Spark Your Light podcast. We have a wonderful interview with Ashley Gordon on there. So go check it out. I'm at Jaclyn DiGregorio on Instagram, and my book is called Stop Getting in Your Own Way, and you can get it on Amazon. And I would love to connect with you all.
And if you're a publisher, hit her up.
Yeah. if you've been just like being like, this girl has really powerful words, I'm open and ready to receive.
Yes. Amen to that. Amen to that. Thank you so much. Seriously.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. We'll see you guys next time. Have a beautiful day. Woo! We did some work today. Thank you so much for listening. You know I love my BAM fam. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who you know would love it too, because we live for the ripple effect over here. And how can you best support the show? Make sure you're subscribed, hit the 5 stars, and leave a review on iTunes, and let me know how the podcast has impacted you. I love being part of your real-time journey, so screenshot the episode and tag me and my guests on Instagram at Manifest with Ash. Now say it with me. I am my own power source. I am the master of my own energy, and I deserve everything that I desire. We don't just talk about it over here, we be about it. Now go get 'em.